Welcome, greetings humans, it is I, Slinkus, and I am here to talk to you about the same topic that we covered last week. So last week I did a stream about networking, but I had a weird microphone thing, so it didn't record over. So we're going to be covering the same topics, but I've got a very specific project for us to work on it. So we're going to be talking about, we've divided networking and discussing it into two parts. So in this part, we're going to be talking about default context, and in some ways, server context and client context. And then next week, we're going to be tackling static context and server context and when you would use those. This is the same topic as the last one. So this is part one and next week is going to be part two. I'm sort of doing a redo, but we're doing an entirely new project. What we are going to do today is to build a voting system like Among Us. So we're going to make a system where in any hidden identity games, you can call a vote. The vote gives you the option of everybody who is currently connected to the game, and then lets us all kill one player by democracy, because isn't that what democracy is all about? So yeah, welcome. This is definitely highly inspired by the Space Werewolves Among Us core game, whose code I've actually shown off on stream before. I don't think that VOD is still up, but it is a really interesting one. Yeah, so we're going to be working on a voting system. I have practiced some of this stuff, but not all of it, so we may be figuring some things out. Get ready. I think we're going to have a great time. So the whole goal today is to talk about how the client scripts and server scripts talk to each other. And if you're coming from like a single player development experience, the whole event system might be strange for you. If you're coming from a modding system, then events make a lot more sense because you're kind of already hooking into an existing functioning game, right? And core is really in a space in between these two things, where it is in many ways, you know, you've already got this like online playable, walk aroundable space with a controller player character. So it's not that there's nothing here, but also you're building out all the game logic yourself. So you have kind of both of those things going on. So we're going to be talking about those events, but first let me clarify what I mean by server and client side scripts. So we have in our contexts, I'll show a context here. We have the three contexts that we see when you're actually making something. And that is client, server, and static. And again, I'm really going to be talking about server and static. Next week, we're mostly going to be focusing on client. But the thing is, there's a couple things to know. One of them is that the context that we're in when we're not in any of these is called the default context. A lot of people don't know that. And one of the things is that the static context and the default context didn't used to be separate. They were the same one. So sometimes you'll see old Manticore things that say like, you know, geostatic context, and they actually just mean like the thing that's in the default context, or things like that. Now, more and more we're really using the static context, so you won't see that as much, but just historically that is, sometimes you'll see some overlap between those things. And the static context is most similar to the default normal context, where I can just throw objects in, they have collision, we can walk around them, I can share that space with multiple people. It's multiplayer magic. So these are contexts for usually like objects, VFX, UI, things like that. Now, with scripts, for the most part, I only put scripts in two locations: the default context and the client context. And in the default context, they have access to all of the server side things. So for the most part, if I'm talking about a server side script, I'm just talking about a script in this default context. Any script that I put in here, if we generated a script and I just threw it in the hierarchy, that would be a server side script, and it would not be able to access things that are client side. So what we're actually going to do first though is we're going to create a button. Oh, right. Okay. We're going to go to UI elements, UI button, and we're going to stick it here, but actually we're going to reset the X and Y offset, and we're going to change its anchor and dock to bottom right and bottom right so that we can see it. We'll move it up a little bit. I'm going to make it 100 by 100. And let's give it an image. So this is going to be for voting. Something that looks like, I don't know. What looks like voting-y? Checklists or lists, or let me see here. List, scroll. That that could be, that's close. I feel like there's one that's more like this, but it's just the UI object. All right, we'll use this for now. This is our voting button. Doesn't really look clear that it's a button, but here we are. Let's give it a color. And then, okay. So now let's see here. So if I just do a local preview right now, when I hover this, I get a different color. That's kind of fun. That helps. And we need to say vote. Now, okay. So the thing is that in order to do that, I had to pause my game because right now my cursor is doing all of the view control. So we're just going to change this and I'm going to show you kind of the lazy way to change this. So let's go ahead. We're going to use the script generator and we're going to we have a button clicked, hovered, unhovered event. And I'm going to just use this to create a new script and I'm going to call this voting button script. And we're going to just add a client at the end of it. So I know that this is all going to go into client context. Okay. So speaking of client context, let's go ahead and take this UI container, right click it, and we're going to say create new client context containing this. And this is going to be UI elements. Boom. Got them here. So we can open that up. We've got the UI container. And as we know, our scripts go into the My Scripts section of our project. Did I not save that script? Weird. Okay. Let's generate it again. Script generator, button, clicked, hovered, uncovered, create new script. Voting, button, client. And we'll create a new script. Okay, now we have it. It exists here. We're all good. I might have done it while I was previewing. I'm not entirely sure. Okay. So, and I'm going to, just because I know how this script works. So we just added this script that we created named voting button client as a child to the button. And I just know that that's the way these scripts work. So here it says button equals script.parent. So I just conformed to that. If I wanted to change this and say button equals script.get custom property and then add it as a custom property, I could absolutely do that. I'm just right now going for the path of least resistance. And then what we'll find is even once I add this, when I press play, I still can't see my cursor. So what I need to do, and this is a client-side script, so this shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to say UI, two things, UI.set cursor visible true, and UI.set, this is, if I remember this exactly, I just definitely deserve a prize. Let's stop our preview so that this actually works. We're gonna say, let me make this a little bit bigger for the visibility. We're gonna say set can cursor interact with UI true. So I'm gonna press play and I can see my cursor, and when I click this button, let's see, if we had our event log, we would say button clicked UI button. So I actually nailed that. And I learned that one from Boo Radley, actually. Boo Radley or Punkarella, I think both of them were talking to me about it. But that if you don't add that can cursor interact, then the first time you click, it doesn't work. Once you've clicked a UI, you'll be able to interact with it. So it's not game breaking, but yeah, now we have a clickable button. We won. That's it. Let's add a clicked pressed color. We'll make it really dark. Okay, there we go. So now, boom, we press it and it goes dark, but it resets again. Oh, this is pressed. Okay, so hovered, lighter, pressed, darker, released. Okay, and we can disable all of that with this checkbox here. Okay, so we now have a voting button color script, and what we want to do is we wanted to open a voting menu. So let's go ahead and create a UI voting menu. I'm going to stop the preview and then I'm going to add a UI panel. Anytime I want something to jump up in the center of the screen, I'm always going to set its anchor and dock to middle center. So let's go ahead and do that. Middle center, middle center. Okay, and then I just always reset the transforms so that it goes to exactly where I sent it. It tries to kind of keep track of where it is relative to where you're moving it. So let's change this width to 300. And we'll change the height to 400 or 800, I mean. We're gonna make a list of 800 players is the idea, and I'm just gonna do it vertically so that I can be lazy because that's important to me right now. Okay, so let us grab a background. I'm gonna go to UI textures, backgrounds is a section, and I don't know, if you want anything that looks sort of like 3D-ish, then this works really well. And then I'm just gonna select inherent parent width and parent height to get this thing. And once I have that in, I can change this out and I can say, no, I actually want it to have corners, and we can see it now has corners. Or we can change, this one is partially transparent, so it's nice if you layer it on top of another one. Or, you know, maybe that works for my scene, but I'm just gonna go with my completely, what if we just do that? Nah, that's soulless. Let's do this. Boom. Okay, so this is gonna be our list of people we could vote for. And what we're gonna do is I am going to, let's add a text, UI elements, UI text box. We're gonna add it here. Let's see here. So it's there. I am going to anchor top center. Doc is top center. We're gonna reset the transform so it goes there. I'm gonna change the justification to center. We'll make the text like 36, yeah. The color will be black. Boom. Okay, and we're gonna call this voting. Okay. So the whole 800 thing. Boom. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what we need now is we need a button for everybody who is online. So let's add that. We're gonna create a script. We're gonna call it voting menu client, just to stick with the convention, because this is also in my UI elements client context, and we'll grab that. And I need it to be in a client context if I want to interact with any UI thing. So that's really important. So we're going to put voting menu, and we're going to make it a child of, doesn't matter, the panel, let's say. So let's talk about, we're going to basically make a bunch of buttons. Let's add a button as a custom property. Can I do that? No, I'm going to need to make a template. Or I think I could just create a button. So let's add a button to here. And we will anchor top center, top center. We'll reset the transform so that it goes where I want. Oop, no, okay, this didn't go in my panel. So we're gonna add this to the panel. This will be my button. And I'll reset that transform. We can delete this UI container. Okay, so we've got this guy, and then we're going to set its Y offset to 100. Z is minus 50? No, that's the floor. Okay, button, Y offset 100, and that brings it down. Okay, cool. So now, and we're going to go ahead and set you to inherit parent width. Okay, so this is, and let's make that height 60, let's say. Okay. So this is going to be one of my buttons that has the people in them. I think, do I have the option to maybe, I don't know what controls the text, a line of text on a button. Is it here? I don't know. Let's give it a texture too, just for fun. This again. That kind of works. That's a good one for buttons. Okay, that's even buttonier. Okay, so what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna call this player vote player button, something like that. Okay, and I'm going to create a new template from this. All right, new template. Awesome. So now this exists and I can delete it. And what I want to do now is I'm going to go into my templates, vote player button exists, and on the voting menu script, I'm going to add this as a custom property. So the button is a template now. So we're actually going to spawn a new copy of it for each player. And that way I don't have more buttons than I have players is the idea. So once we made a template, we don't need it anymore. So let's go to the voting button and we're going to say, the first thing that's kind of cool is that I can actually get all of the local players in a client context. So let's just verify that. So we're going to say, let's make a function. We'll call it show all players in buttons. Very, very reasonable. And then end it with an end. I always do first. And we're going to say local players equals game dot get local players. The word local is completely coincidence in there. Local I'm just using to make a variable that's inside of the scope. And then game.getLocalPlayers gets everybody who's connected. So let's just make a loop to test that this works first of all, right? Let's just not get ahead of ourselves. This is very much how I work on things too, is let's test things early before we add things in. So we'll say for_player. So I don't care what the number is. This is going to be a number, and then this is going to be the actual player in players, which is this list that we just got, this table that we just got from the server, which I guess we got it from the client because it's replicated in the client. Oh, is it get players? I've done this before. Insert yourself. In players. And of course I need to, in order to have a number and a player organized into a list like that, I need to I-pairs the players. Do, and we'll say print player, lowercase player, dot name, end. Okay. So let's go ahead and, let's also call this function, shall we? Show all players. Okay, so this may not work. This will work in a local preview. If I try this in a multiplayer preview, right, then it would do this function as soon as the game loads. And how many players are connected when the game loads? 0, right? So show all players in buttons is actually the name of this function. So we'll do that, but it's not really in buttons. So we can test this in a local preview, and I will spawn at the same time as the game because it's a local preview. So in this case, it says course Linkus. So we know that it can access the things I want, but doing it the way we're doing is not exactly going to work. Okay, so instead of printing the player's name, right, what I want to do is I want to get a reference to that template. So that's going to be this variable text that came when I edited as a custom property. I'll add that at the top here. And I'm going to say world.spawn asset prop vote player button, that whole thing. But I also want it to be a child of the UI thing, right? So I specifically want it to be a child of this UI panel. So let's go ahead, and that is script.parent. So we'll just do it that way. So we're going to say local, we'll just call it panel equals script.parent, right? Okay, so now when this spawns, I would like it to spawn right in there as a child. So what I can do is I can add in world.spawn asset an optional parameter, which is parent. So we'll say squiggle bracket for the optional parameters. That's the technical term. Parent equals, and then panel. Okay. So this should spawn it, and then what I want to do is I also want to change its text, but I can't change the text of the button here. Oh, this is going to need to be networked. Well, let's have you need to network that game. So let's just go ahead and let's look at it together in dark mode, unless somebody presses a button. So we'll do spawn asset. Oh, we're not in the not in the API reference. So we'll say spawn asset. And here it is, and we can see that we basically they include parent and then basically the 3 transform properties. So yeah, so I can't right now just specify, say, the property that I want to change, which is actually the text of this button, which it's going to have to be networked to change. So we're going to add this here, and we're going to have parent.panel, and then what I need to do is if I want to change its text, I need a variable reference to it. So I'm going to say local button equals, and that way if I want to change something after it, I can just use button. So I'm gonna say button.text equals player.name. Okay, let's see what happens, right? So we'll press play, and boom! You guys see this? You folks see how easy that was? So in case you're trying to figure out how to do a UI leaderboard, very similar process actually. So that's awesome. The button doesn't do anything, but it's awesome, right? Let's F11 to get back out of that. Okay, now here's the problem. Let's try this in a multiplayer preview and see everything that goes wrong. So we're gonna press play. The UI should be up on both of these, and let's see what it actually shows, which is, oh, it shows, one of them shows bot 1 and one of them shows bot 2. So that's kind of cool. So the UI seemed to update for when the players load. But if I could move, let's see, I can't pause it. Essentially, all of the buttons are on top of each other, right? So what we need to do is we need to move each next button down. So we will, for right now, we're gonna say, instead of this, we're gonna say I for the number. So I is gonna represent, we could call it something else. I'm used to I, that's what the I in I pairs stands for, so we're gonna call it I. And what I'm gonna say is button dot, I think it's just button dot Y. And what I wanna do is on the first one, move it down 0, because it showed up in the exact right place. But on the second one, I wanna move it down, let's say 100 more, and 100 more for each one. So we're gonna say button dot Y equals, and since I starts at 1, I'm gonna say I minus 1 so that when it's 1 it does 0, and then after that times 100. Let's see if that works. Just gonna have a first try time. So we'll pull this up. All right, let's take out the -1. And then these may be too spaced out. I think that they are themselves 60 tall, so 100 might be too much. UI math, oh my gosh. So I used to, before Core, the only thing I made was single player client-side JavaScript games, and usually just using vanilla JavaScript because I liked it, and I liked sort of making my own engine, if you will. I did a little bit of Phaser, but and then I loved this library called P5 that's basically designed for teaching people, and I used it to teach people, so that's why. All right, so let's try it this way, do another preview, see how you look. Badoop, badoop. So bot 1 is fine, and bot 2 is not. Bot 2 just didn't get bot 1. And that's kind of not surprising. Well, we'll test it out. Anyway, what I want to do now is I want to not show this all the time. I want this button to open this menu, right? So we're going to be going from a client-side script to a client-side script. And so in order to do that, that means we need a broadcast, but because they're in the same context, it's just going to be regular broadcasts. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this UI panel, and I'm gonna call this voting menu, just so I know. And I'm gonna take voting button, and I'm gonna have it broadcast an event when I click the button. So instead of printing that the button was clicked, we can delete that. And we really don't need any of the rest of this, but it's not hurting anything. So we're gonna say events.broadcast, and we'll call our event show voting menu. Boom. So we'll do that. So I'm gonna have the button open the menu for me on my client. So then in the voting menu, we will open this up, and instead of just show all player buttons, we're gonna say events.connect, and we're gonna connect the events with it. So show voting menu, if I recall correctly, comma, and then I'm not gonna call the function there. I'm just gonna say this is the function, show all players and buttons, that's connected to show voting menu. So let's see what that looks like. We will, we're gonna take this back to a local preview. I'm gonna take voting menu. Oh, I also need to set it as visible. Okay, so we will take this. Actually, let's just try. Let's see what that looks like right now. So if I press play now, it shows nobody. If I press this button, it adds me as a button. Okay, so what we want to do is we also want to show it. So we're going to take voting menu. We're going to change its visibility to force off. And then we're going to go into the voting menu script, and panel is the thing that we just forced the visibility off, and show all players is going to be panel dot visibility. And if you've played this game, we're going to say the word visibility 3 times. Visibility equals visibility. It's just twice. Dot, let's do inherit. Okay, boom. So every once in a while when I use inherit, I don't notice that I have a parent that's invisible or visibility force off, and then things get complicated for me, but for the most part that works. So let's again just local preview this. We press play. Now if I press the button, the menu shows up. Nice. All right, so let's see this in a multiplayer context. Maybe I should have had 4 players, but we'll just do the 2 right now. We've got bot 1 over here and bot 2 over here. So as bot 1, I'm going to click my menu for voting. And we'll see I get both of the bots here, but it only shows up for me, right? Because it went from a client context, I press the button, to client context, I see the menu, right? It never went to the server. Nobody else, it has not changed anything on anybody else's screen, because that's the beauty of the client context. In bot 2, I'll click this, and now the order's different, which is something that would be, we'd have to sort them, I think, to control that. But we can see now that I have both of them displayed. They have the same spacing. We can reduce that. I think I might take that down to 60, or increase the size of the buttons, depending on what you want to do about it. And then pressing the button again doesn't hide it, so I don't expect that to do anything. So, okay. So now that I've waited for that event, it set it up. But this isn't what I want to have happen. What I want to have happen, right, is that I want me to press the voting button and then everybody has to vote, right? So we can do that. We're going to create a new script, and this is going to be voting. We'll call this voting manager server. All right, and so we're going to create the script. I'm going to just stick this in here, right? And we're going to make a function called start a vote, right? And what it needs to do is, let's for right now have it print time to vote. Okay. And then we're going to connect it to an event.connect, and that we're going to call the event start voting or something like that. I don't know. Okay. And then we'll attach it to the function. Okay. So we need something to trigger this event to say start voting. And we're going to change the voting button rather than broadcasting here to show voting menu, right? We're going to have it broadcast to server, and it's going to say, what do we call it? Start voting. Start voting here. I'll just copy it here. All right, so just one more time, the button now broadcasts to the server to start voting, and the server does nothing but print time to vote. So let's just see how that looks. We'll start with just a regular preview. So I'm gonna, and I'll open my event log here so we can see it. I press play, I can still interact with the screen, and I press the button and it says time to vote. So my client-side interaction is talking to the server. But it's not pulling up this menu anymore. So what we need to do now is we need the server to tell all of the players. So when I'm a client, there's only one server. So I just say broadcast to server. And that means I want to not, this is not a client context thing. I now need to send a signal to something to happen in the rest of the game. Okay, that server now needs to tell everybody's computer that it is time to vote. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, instead of printing time to vote, which does not actually achieve anything, we're going to say events.broadcast to all players, right? So we're going to now, from my server, send back to all of the client contexts of the players. And that is going to be the thing that opens the menu. So that is going to be show voting menu. So let's see how this works. Okay. Boom. So we're going to press play. And now, okay, local preview, not doing anything. Did I save the script? Yeah, I did. Okay, events.broad. Oh, I didn't actually finish the show voting menu part. Boom. Now we'll save that. That'll help. Let's do a local preview first. We press this. Still not working. Start a vote. Start a vote. Show vote. Oh, wait. No, it's not show. Oops. Voting manager is supposed to not show voting menu. Ugh. Okay, wait. Hang on. Start a vote needs to be connected to. Sorry. All right, we're fine. So show voting menu is from the button. Broadcaster server, so this should be start voting. This is, okay. Sorry, I messed myself up with my events. Let's, okay. Let's go ahead and MS Paint it up. Okay, so what we have is, let's go ahead and write big here, client and server, right? And so then we have something smaller. Let's make you like the 48. And we're gonna say button. And it broadcasts, give me an arrow. It broadcasts, what does it broadcast? Let's look at this. The button sends start voting. Sorry, I don't know if this actually needs a diagram, but we're getting one, so here we go. So it does start voting. I need this to be like 24. Okay. Put that there, and that goes over here to the server. And when the server receives start voting, what does it broadcast? Sorry, this is not arrow game, not on point right now. It should broadcast something like show menu, right? So we're looking at the server and it's going to broadcast to all players, show voting menu. Okay. And then show voting menu is waiting for show voting menu to do the trick of showing itself. So let's grab that. We'll put this in our very elaborate diagram. So complicated. Right here, show voting menu. And then this should open up, sorry, the menu. Okay. This is literally what's happening. And of course, it's not even really conveying the fact that there are, let's parentheses, 8 clients and only 1 server. I know where the number 8 is. We're fine. Okay. So this is the general diagram here. This is in fact one person's button heading out to 8 menus. Saying let menu script saying now go ahead and show yourself. So let's test this again. Should be fine. I press play, I press this, I open the menu. That just as expected. Let's go ahead and do a preview with 4 players. We'll press play. Wait for it to start up. With magic, so many Lumbernallos. And I'm going to, in bot 1, press the menu, and we can now see the order is different for all of them. And that is because lists are not actually ordered. We could sort it so that everybody has the same, but it won't actually change what the voting is. And so now we can open this up on everybody's screen. Okay. With me so far. Okay. Let's go back and stop that preview. And I will open up my list. Okay. So now we actually need to vote, right? That's like the whole thing. So now the button presses don't actually do anything. So with the voting menu, this is actually where we generate the buttons with the players, right? And here we basically say, okay, we're going to give it a player's name. So we are going to say, let's look at the button on how we do this, right? We basically got a button clicked event connect, and then we can put a function there. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go into my voting menu, and mine's also called button. So I'm going to say button clicked event, and then this on click function doesn't exist. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add an anonymous function here that broadcasts a vote for the player's name to the server. Okay, this might not be the best way to do this, but here we go. So, and by anonymous function, I mean I'm not going to give it a name. I'm actually just going to say function like this. And then end right here. And it all goes in parentheses because we're sort of feeding it into this clicked event. Okay, and we're going to say event.broadcast to server, and it's going to be vote. And then it's going to be, what do we call it? Vote for, and then we'll give it the player that we're voting for, player.name. Okay, So what this did, right, is that this made as many copies of this function and connected it to the event. But what's happening here is that I'm making a slightly different version of this function each time. So each one has a function in it, and that function broadcasts to the server vote for. But when I made the button named bot1, it says literally my function is broadcast vote for bot1. This is how we did this. This might not actually be the best way to do it. There might be something that just says, hey, if any of these buttons are pressed, grab their script and send that in. But we're gonna do it this way because I think it'll work. Okay, and the way we're gonna test it, right, is this is broadcasting to the server, because the server is obviously the one that can do the counting, right, because it needs everybody's votes. It's like the little hat that's taking them all in anonymously and counting them up and gonna give us the results. So we're gonna go into the voting manager and we're going to say function count vote. And right now it's just gonna print the vote, and we're gonna need a player name, right? That's what we're getting, is a player name. So we're gonna say print one vote for, and then player name. And we're going to, let's go ahead and print. What we want to do is, we can't just be getting all of these votes willy-nilly, right? We want one vote per person, right? So we're right now just going to check, who did we get this vote from, and we're going to say voted by, and then player. So let me go ahead, and I'm pretty sure I'll just do player name. We'll find out. Okay, so now I need to, when this goes back to the server, send back both the name of the player that they voted for and the person who voted, right? So it's not just like sending stuff to the server where I'm just like, somebody press the voting button, it doesn't matter, just open it for everybody, right? We can keep track of that, but we're not going to right now because it's not part of our sort of minimum version of this. But we do want to know who voted. So to do that, I need to do events.connect for player count vote. Wait, I need the function name. So this is going to be vote for, and then count vote. And I'm pretty sure the player will show up as the first parameter. I could be wrong about this. We're about to find out. There's something about this. I literally just figured this one out not that long ago. So broadcast to server should stay the same, but in this case, we're getting the player, because what we don't want to do is pass that whole player object, because there's like a ton of data on that. And if I'm passing that between client and server, that is a messy. That's why I'm specifically getting the player's name, not like the whole player object, because that's like where the player is, like what their ID is, like what objects are attached to it, what equipment does it have, all of that is attached to player. So we don't want that. Also now, as we are discovering what perks they own, is also attached to this data on the player. We don't want to be passing that back and forth. We just want the player's name, but when I use this connect for player, it does a little bit of magic, so it doesn't actually pass the whole player object, but just gets me the right amount of information to find that. So this is more core magic. Okay, so let's do a local version of this first. If I press play, I open up the menu and I click Course Linkus. It says one vote for Course Linkus, voted by, and then capital P player. And that is exactly what we wanted. So, because I said player and not player.name. So let's check this out. We'll press play. And what we should see is I press the voting menu, I press this, and let me just actually zoom in on this because I'm sure you guys can't see it. You folks can't see it. And we will just zoom in here and we get one vote for Course Linkus, voted by Course Linkus. Course Linkus is not interested in their own survival, clearly. Okay, so we've got now a voting system. Let's go ahead and do multiplayer test right now before we get carried away. Make sure that it is actually accurately getting who does what. So we're gonna pull up our 4 sus characters. They are gonna be a different Nalo. You're gonna be a bot, and then we got 2 lumber Nalos. You're gonna be this one. Okay, cool. So now we've got this is our lineup here of all of our characters that we have. And we are going to start a vote. So let's take this back down to regular size. We can see that voting has opened up for everybody else. And then I am here, I'm bot 4, so I'm going to vote for bot 2. And nothing's happening. Okay, so bot 1 voted for bot 2, bot 1 voted for bot 2, bot 1 voted for bot 2. So that one's working. Let's just check here. So now here I am. This is, I believe, bot 3, just based on the position. So I'm going to vote for bot 4 here, and we see bot 3 voted for bot 4. And you can see that I can do it as many times because we're not really checking it, right? Okay, so let's save the votes on the server side, right? Let's make a counting thing. Okay, so this is actually receive vote. Actually, we could do it all here. Okay. We're going to keep the print statements just for now. And what I want to do is I want to make a table called votes, right? So we'll make a local votes table equals this, right? And basically, each time we vote for somebody, we're going to add them to the table and add a number. So we're going to say if votes doesn't have this person, if not votes square bracket player name, then player name, then we'll just add them. We're gonna say votes, and then we'll add the player's name to the table. And if they're not on it, then this is the first vote for them equals 1. And then else is assuming that they are actually on the table, and we're gonna say votes player name equals 1 more than however many is on there. So that's gonna be votes player name equals however many they have plus 1. Okay. So this should tally up all of my votes. But again, you can vote as many times as you want, right? So now we've got the votes. And then what I want to do now, though, is I want to say, okay, your vote has been counted. You can't vote anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to broadcast that back to the player. So I'm going to say events.broadcast to just the one player. And then the first parameter on that is the player. And then we'll say vote counted. That's it. Okay, so now in the voting menu, let's see here. So I actually don't have the ability. I can sort of get all the buttons. Okay, so we're gonna find children by type button, I think. Okay, so let's say no more voting. So we're gonna say function stop voting, right? And what I want to do is I want to go through and I want to disable all the buttons. That might not be the best way to do it, but I want them to clearly see that something has changed. So in order to do that, we need to look at where these buttons, so these buttons are in the voting menu panel, and there are no other buttons in it. So we should be able to find children by type. So we're going to say local buttons equals panel find, is it find children by type? Let's go ahead and pull up that API, shall we? Where are you at, API? API. Okay. I'm gonna say find children. There's no find children, find child by type. So we can't find all of them? Or is it called like get all? Let's just look up children and see what we get for that. Get children. All right, we'll just do it this way. We're gonna get all of the children, and then of those children, if they are a button, we're going to disable them. Local, okay. So local all panel children equals panel get children. All right, so this is give me a table of everything that's in there. And then we're going to say for underscore child in all panel I pairs, all panel children do, and I'm going to say, okay, if this thing is a button, then disable it. And I actually have to check that disable is just disabled, right? So let's do, so we're going to say if child is a, and then button, then child dot is interactable equals false. Let's try it, right? Okay, so that's what we want to do is we want to say end and end, and then we're going to connect this events.connect, and then the thing we're connecting to is vote counted. We're gonna say, okay, so basically once my vote is counted, I don't get to vote anymore. stop voting. Okay, so let's see what this looks like so far. We're gonna try a local preview first because it's faster. Just keeping in mind that things will sometimes work here that they don't. Attempt to index a nil value global votes, and that's in server 13. So let's look at it. Server 13. If not votes, oh, it's called votes table. I'll just change it to votes up here since I did it there. Okay, so there's votes. We're good. And you know, I was once told not to put the type in the variable name, but sometimes you gotta. So let's go ahead and try this again with that change. So I'm going to click my menu. I'm going to vote for myself, and it's going to be 1 vote for Slinkus, and that did not disable anything. Let's double check that I actually saved. Let's see here. Let's print the child.name as we're doing this to make sure that this is working. So we'll stop here and we'll say vote for me, and UI image, UI text box, UI vote player button. So it's definitely is interactable, is just not changing. Yeah, I think that just like, anyway, let's see, we could try to disconnect the event. All right, what we'll do is we'll print whether the child is interactable. Maybe it's not getting the is a button and I needed it to be UI button or something like that. Print child dot is interactable. So we've got 4 things. Only one of them should be changed to false. I don't know if the other ones are true, but anyway, what we should see is print this, click this, and then we see UI image nil, UI text box nil, UI voting menu nil, and then UI vote player button true. So it's not a button. It's probably a UI button. We could guess one more time, and then after that, I'll actually look it up. So let's try is a UI button. Since that's the actual class name that we see in the API, it makes a lot more sense. So let's try it again. We press play. We click the voting menu. We click ourselves, and it now says that the vote is false, and we can see that we're not doing it anymore, and it looks gray. So let's just, we'll take our button template here. Where are you? My templates. I'm going to grab this vote player button. I'm just going to stick it in the hierarchy. And what I want is the disabled color to look really obvious. So I'm going to make it a really dark gray like that. And then we're going to right click, update template from this, and delete it again. Okay, so now, just to be clear, so we can see what's happening here, I will F11 for maximum visibility. I hit the button, I vote for myself, and it is very clear that I cannot vote. So let's see what happens when we add more people. So I think I just need 2 for this just to make sure that it's working. Sometimes be sure if you are using anything that's like sorting people into 2 places or anything like that, keep in mind that you should test even in odd numbers. It's not really relevant here, but that does come up in a way that I think is worth noting. So I press my vote menu. It brings up for both people. When I vote, I can no longer vote. If I check the event log, we can see that 1 vote for bot 1 by bot 1, and then we will have bot 2 agree. So bot 2 is also going to vote for bot. No, that's bot 1. We're going to have bot 2 also vote for bot 1, and then we'll have 2 votes for bot 1. Okay, cool. So let's get rid of all of that client-side broadcast, and it's really fun on your server. If it's being broadcasted from a client, it actually tells you which client is broadcasting, if it's being printed from a client. I think that's really useful and a cool thing to keep in mind. So we're going to delete that, and we're not going to print the child's name anymore, but we're keeping the votes. And then let's make something that tallies up the votes. Okay, so we've got the votes counted, and now we're going to say function determine vote winner. Did you win the votes if you get voted off? And that is gonna, it doesn't actually need anything because the votes is in the scope up here. So this should be fine. If not, let's say, okay, so if we say if the number of things in votes, I can't do that because it's not number. It's not a paired things. Okay. Testing in odd numbers. Yeah. Okay. Also, let's just, I'm going to just stop everything to tell you folks the most important thing you can ever learn about testing, right? And this is true, especially with, I think we've all had the experience of it was working fine when I was just testing it here. I even tested it multiplayer. And then when I publish, nothing works. And I was talking to somebody about this today. And so here's what you do. You go to multiplayer, you select 0 players, you press play. Okay, because this is what core games are like when you load them. They load with 0 players. Then you add people in, which, by the way, you can get up to your full number. You're not limited to 4. So I can actually add like 8 people. Let's see how many we've got so far. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm at 5. So I'm already past the maximum. And also, this is a secret for screenshots. If you're trying to add a bunch of people, you can surpass that. But now I have something that's much closer, and now I can test like, oh, okay, if I wanted to see what order do things show up in, right? Because expecting things when you're working with Lua to stay in the right order, don't do that. I promise you, especially in this case, because each one of my clients is asking itself what all the local players are. So it's always going to pick you first, and then it's going to figure out the rest of them. Maybe. I don't even know if you can count on that. But anyway, so this is a much better way to test. Start with 0 players, add them in. Start with 0 players, add 1 in, mess around for a little bit, add 1 in, especially like later when you guys are testing things like perks and stuff like that. This is a great way to make sure that things are working. Closer to the server. It won't grab every single thing that's like a multiplayer preview, because then you have like the question mark of what happens when people have really different machines, like really slow machines or like really, really fast machines. Like that could change like timing in between things as well. But this is the best way to test to get like a closest to the core server test. You're welcome. Direct from the Slinkus to you. Okay, so that is, where are we? We need to total up our votes. So we've actually covered, so far we've covered when we had the voting button, right? We broadcast to the server, right? In the voting menu, we also broadcast to the server. So all of our information is being broadcasted to the server. The server broadcasts to all players when it wants to open up the menu to all people, and then to an individual player to say, hey, go ahead, I've counted your vote, now change your experience so that person cannot vote again. This isn't like the best way to check that they can't vote twice. We'd probably also want to tally that up. But this is pretty lightweight, but you can see we're doing broadcast to all players when we want everybody to have the same experience client-side, and broadcast 2 players when we're changing 1 person's client-side experience. And then from a connect perspective, if it's in the same context, it's always connect. And then, was it connect for player here? Where is it? And then here we're using connect for player because I also want to know which client sent me this data. So we got to determine a winner, right? So we're basically going to say local most votes. We're gonna make a number, right? Most votes equals 0. Okay, now I'm gonna go through the loop of the votes. So I'm gonna say for player name count in pairs. In this case, we're doing pairs because it's not a numbered one. So this one, I said actually save them all by the name of the person. Just make me like a tally board, right? That just writes name and then number, and name then a number. So there's no like which one is the first one. That doesn't exist in this case. In pairs, and this is going to be votes, we're going to say basically if the count, which is the count of their votes, is greater than most votes. Let's see, we'll say here winner. We're gonna just call the person who wins the vote winner. If the count is greater than the most votes, then basically, so I'm gonna do a version of this that just doesn't deal with it when people tie, because that's an extra step and I just want to get a functional thing. But you would have to want to do something so that it isn't just like if 2 people get the same number of votes, right? What do you want to do? You probably want to like have a second vote. You might say that, you know, nobody wins or something like that. There's a lot of ways to handle that. We're not going to handle that. Okay. So if player name counts vote is the most votes, then they're the new winner, and the most votes is the number that they have. Most votes equals count, and winner equals player name, right? So that's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna say, okay, if you've got more votes than the most votes so far, you're the new winner. And then at the end of this, we're just gonna return the winner. Yeah, That's it. Okay, so the next thing we have to figure out is how to end the voting system. And this is a little bit annoying. So I'm going to set up a system where everybody has to vote. So we're going to say, is this the best way to do it? Okay, let's, we could set server data. But let's see if we can't get a total of votes. So what we're gonna do is I am going to, when I count vote, say vote counted, and I'm also going to set data on the player. So I'm gonna say player set server user data. We're going to set data, server data for the player. So we're gonna say player dot server user data, and then we're gonna add a property, and that's gonna be has voted equals true, right? And somewhere along the line, I deleted my end, which we do not like. Okay, so we're just gonna say basically check all the players. Then I'm gonna say, let's see here. So let's do this. Every time we count a vote. So we could do a tick function, right? I could do a tick function. I could say, okay, constantly check if everybody has voted. And the second everybody has voted, end the thing. What I'm gonna do instead of that is I'm going to try to say, okay, check it each time you add a vote, check if everybody has voted. So we're going to add this function. Let's add it up here. I never know when it defines functions. Okay, so function has everyone voted. Let's make it a true falsible statement. So we'll say everyone has voted. All right, this is gonna be totally weird when somebody adds int, which is one of those tests that I was talking about. So we'll see this. So we're gonna say for underscore, wait, we don't need parentheses. We're gonna say for underscore player in iPairs game get local player. And we're basically saying if there's a single player who hasn't voted yet, go ahead and return false. Get players. Gosh. I don't know why I want get local players. That doesn't even make sense. It's a multiplayer game. Game.players do. We're gonna say do. No, don't do that to me. Do. Autocomplete. You are not my friend right now. Space enter. What are we gonna do? We're gonna say if player dot server user data. What do we call it? Has voted. Has voted. Let's do it. We'll say if not, they have voted. Then, does that work? Yeah. Return false. And basically, if you get through this whole loop and you haven't done it, you haven't found a false yet, then go ahead and return true. So here's where we are. We're going to go through this loop and we're going to see if everybody has voted. And we're adding server user data, which is just any property you can change. And I'm doing server side because I'm on a server side script. So it's server user data. I could have client user data too. And so each time we count a vote, and we're also going to print the winner here. We'll do that. Print winner, comma, winner, like that, so that I know who it is. And then I'm gonna go ahead and say basically every time you count a vote, if, and we'll call our function, everyone has voted, then go ahead and determine a winner. Determine vote winner. So here, this is so similar to what I've been doing with broadcasts, but I'm having all of these functions in the same script talking to each other. Let's see if this works. I have no actual confidence, but let's go ahead. Let's do single player preview. Let's see what happens. It doesn't like it. Do expected near if voting manager server 40. So let's go to 40. And I've got 4 player name count in pairs votes do. There we go. All right, right you are. And we'll press play, see what happens. Oh, we're doing a 0 player preview. Let's stop and let's do a local preview first. See what happens when we have just one person. Winner, Course Linkus. I got the most votes, I won, I can't vote anymore. All of that happened. We're actually getting the total. Okay, so let's go ahead and after we get this, I'm gonna call it because we've demonstrated everything I wanted to do. So let's get 4 players up here. I'm gonna press play. And in my system, right, everybody votes. What we would actually want is to activate a timer and figure this out. So I'm gonna have this person. Okay, so this is like the weird thing, right? Is that now we don't have everybody. And so what I would want to do is I would add an on-player join event, and I would handle a lot of the scenarios where somebody joins or leaves in the middle. Because, right, if one of these disconnected, I think we would never... Actually, yeah, if there wasn't another vote, it would never check again that all of the online players. So, okay, one person has voted for bot 4. I'm going to vote for bot 4. This one's going to vote for bot 2, and then this one's going to vote for bot 1. Okay. And let's go check our event log, and it says winner bot 4. Bot 4 had the majority. So the last thing that we would do for this, right, just to hit that last voting manager thing, is we're not just going to return winner or print the winner, right? We are going to, actually, we'll keep that print. We're going to say kill winner. All right, function kill winner. Okay, so right now we only have their name to find them. So we need to, we'll see, we'll make a player here. We'll make a winner, right? And we're going to say, we have to go through the list of the players and find the one whose name matches that name. So we're going to say for underscore player in iPairs game.get get players, right? Get all the players, go through there, do, and we're going to say if player.name equals, we're checking, it's a question name, then winner equals player. And if I knew how to do this well in Lua, I would say, and then stop there once you find that, but whatever. And then we're going to say winner die. Okay. So, nope. Control Z, winner die. And I believe that's all. I think that's what it does. And so then here we're going to say kill winner. Because in this case, winner is the winner's name. And then this case, winner is the actual player reference, and we need to know which player it is. So I'm going to just do it that way. So let's see if this works. Let's do one more preview. And we are all going to vote let's do bot 3 this time off the island. So, man, we got one just lagging, this is a really authentic experience. So it's good. Okay. So, voting for bot 3, voting for bot 3, voting for bot 3, and voting for bot 3. And did we throw an error? Lua task, server attempt to call a nil value global kill. Oh, it's because it's called kill winner. All right, one more time, and then we're going to call it. And thank you again, everybody, for joining me in this exciting project. Let's see here. Let's stop our preview. We will start it again. We'll kill bot 2 this time. Let's have everybody stand in a circle so we can really contemplate what we're doing here. All right, and we're gonna vote. And we're all voting for bot 2. So bot 1 votes for bot 2. Bot 2 is gonna vote for bot 3, but everybody else is gonna vote for bot 2. And then here we are. Let's just see it. There I am, dead bot 2. Unable to move, ragdolled onto the ground. So we did it! We voted someone off the island. We have made a hidden identity game. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And that is, yeah, murder was our goal today. Yeah, and obviously we would need a lot of things for checking if people join in the middle of a round, keeping track of like how many votes for round and things like that. There's a lot more you could add to this, but this is the central idea. And we managed to use connect for player, broadcast to player, broadcast to all players, and broadcast to server. We did it. We beat networking. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me. I will see you in the future.